What drove an entire French town mad on a summer day in 1951? A boy tried to strangle his mother. The postman claimed he was shrinking. A man smashed furniture to ward off imaginary beasts. What made residents of a small French town lose their minds and some lives? A journey back to the site of madness. August 16, 1951, started off like any other summer's day in Pont-Saint-Esprit, a small town in southeastern France. But then, at around 10 a.m., a young farmer staggered into the clinic of the local physician, Dr. Haaretz, mumbling and waving his arms as though warding off a swarm of bees. In short order, another neighbor came in, also babbling incoherently, and it took a full hour for the physician and two assistants to finally persuade him that snakes were not slithering across his body. By nightfall, the medical team had treated 75 hallucinating residents who had sought help. Some 22 were housed in a barn, because the local hospital quickly filled up. Outside physicians were called in, but they, like their local counterparts, were dumbfounded by the phenomenon they'd witnessed. My father always said that it was as though the apocalypse suddenly struck the town, says Dr. Bernard Gabay, the youngest of the town doctor's 5 children, 3 of whom also became physicians. It left an impression that stayed with him his whole life. Many patients had to be tied to their bed to prevent them from hurting themselves and others. When the nurses ran out of rope, they used horses' reins. Nonetheless, some of those affected managed to free themselves from their restraints and join the universal chaos. A little girl screamed that she was being chased by tigers, a boy tried to strangle his mother, a postman complained that he was shrinking, an older woman wept as she saw her children being ground into sausages before her eyes, a heavy-set man smashed furniture in an attempt to expel beasts of prey from his house, a woman and her husband chased each other holding knives, and around the town people were seen fleeing from unseen flames and other horrors. Even the local animals went mad, a dog, for example, bit into stones until its teeth broke. As one Parisian journalist wrote at the time, it is neither Shakespeare nor Edgar Poe. It is, alas, the sad reality all around Pont-Saint-Esprit and its environs, where terrifying scenes of hallucinations are taking place. Not everyone who was affected by the phenomenon suffered from it. Some of them, the New York Times reported, heard heavenly choruses, saw brilliant colors, the world looked beautiful to them. The inexplicable experience moved the director of the local farmers cooperative to write hundreds upon hundreds of pages of poetry. As the hours passed, the hospitals and insane asylums in the region filled up with townspeople. About 300 of them complained of odd sensations, which included nausea, stomach pains, low blood pressure and a weak pulse, insomnia, low body temperature and cold sweats. The incident lasted several days and 7 residents of Pont-Saint-Esprit died as a result of their condition. Another remained in psychiatric confinement for months afterward. I saw healthy men and women suddenly become terror-stricken, tearing their bedsheets and hiding under their blankets for fear of the nightmares that were haunting them. Albert Hebrar, who was 8 at the time and later became mayor of the town, was quoted as saying, "Even today, almost 70 years later, the episode remains one of the most mysterious in French history." A number of books, including one published at the end of 2018, have to shed light on the case, which continues to be the center of heated debate. Turtle postman fungus. The town of Pont-Saint-Esprit was founded in the 5th century but didn't acquire its name until 1309 when, after 30 years of work, construction was completed on the huge stone structure that spans the treacherous Rhone River. Today it's a sleepy town not far from Avignon, in a region that seems to have been passed over by modernity, as the still intact Roman and medieval structures along the streets attest. The current population is upward of 10,000. The shortest route from Paris to Pont-Saint-Esprit involves a 5-hour trip at the minimum, changing trains 3 times until reaching the nearest station, which is still 15 minutes away. At the end of the trip, the taxi I'd hired crossed the Rhone via the ancient stone bridge and passed by an elderly couple sitting on a bench in the plaza at the town's entrance. It was a short drive from there to the municipality for a meeting with Roger Castellan, who was mayor from 2011 until last year. Town Hall is located on Kennedy Boulevard, so named because the great-grandson of Michel Bouvier, a local carpenter, was John Verneau Bouvier, father of Jacqueline Kennedy. Back then, this was largely a farming town, with a population of 4,500, Castellan said, referring to the madness incident. It had an immense impact on events in the years that followed. It wasn't something that could be easily overlooked, or could pass you by, given the fact that so much of the population here was affected. According to local gossip, Castellan is unable to completely relinquish his duties at his advanced age, even though a new mayor, for the first time, a woman, was elected in the recent municipal election. He continues to maintain an office in Town Hall, and welcomed me in his official garb. An only child, Castellan was born and raised here. He was 12 in 1951. Albert Hebrar, who served as mayor at that time, is no longer alive, like most of those who experienced the events firsthand. It struck the town like a hammer blow, recalls Castellan, one of the last remaining witnesses. Looking back, I think the hardest thing that people here were left with, and that still affects them to this day, is the lack of knowledge, the obscure